I guess you could describe me as an attention seeker. Like when I went through my recent mankini phase, I just wanted everybody to see my gym progress. Market myself as a man with God bod. Problem is, I didn't quite get the audience right. Nobody wants to be thrown out of an old folks' home.
At Hello Starling, we plan and buy media backed by data that gets your brand maximum attention and measurable results. So the right people see and hear you at the right time in the right way. Visit hellostarling.com.
On the plus side, Maureen did say I look good in blue. Hello Starling, the home of attention seekers.
Guys, if I were to ask you about shipping containers, what would you know?
It's where loads of like end of action movie sequences happen, like fights and stuff.
Yes, good, yes.
The thing I've noticed about shipping containers is they very rarely work as shipping containers anymore. They seem to be doing everything else. They're like the most versatile thing I've ever known.
Sure.
Well, Will, I'm so glad you said that because one of our sponsors is now Lion Containers. Now, Lion Containers modify shipping containers into brilliant projects that enliven town and city centres, giving some life back to the high streets. You might have seen Good Sheds in Barry.
Yeah.
Force Caerphilly, which is the new market in Caerphilly.
It's lovely there.
It's gorgeous, isn't it? Good chai lattes there. Good chai lattes. And also the temporary housing on Bute Street in Cardiff. Well, Lion Containers fabricated all of these excellent builds out of shipping containers.
There we go.
So if anybody listening wants a shipping container as anything, and that can be a garden shed, a podcast studio even, right up to a workshop in a retail park, head over to Lion Containers website today. And that is www.lioncontainers.co.uk.
I know what I can get both of you for Christmas.
Oh God, no more. Hello and welcome to For Wales See Wales with me, Mel Owen.
Me, Robin Morgan.
And me, Will Hayward.
So nice to see you guys.
Welcome back.
Last week was a chunky one, wasn't it? But important, I think.
Yeah, it was a big boy, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. But we've had, I think this week's going to be a bit more chill. Bit more chill, I think. We say now, who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what bombs Will is going to drop on us?
I mean, people won't be able to tell, but this is actually unscripted. Obviously, it's so seamless, they probably don't realise that. But it is actually an unscripted
We've got
podcast.
auto cues everywhere, haven't we? Absolutely.
It's so ordered. Yeah, but no, it was great. And we've had such nice feedback as well after last week's one.
Yeah, it has been nice. I did see somebody, I think, reply to one of your tweets, or maybe one of your Blue Skies.
My Blue Skies,
Your
yeah.
Blue Sky.
Are you on Blue Sky yet?
What is Blue Sky?
Correct. I'm on it, but I don't know.
I don't know what it is.
It's like essentially Twitter in 2009.
Right, so nice.
It is. It's really I've liked it, but it's because people say nice things to me.
I will say though, all these people are like, oh, I miss what Twitter was. To me, Twitter was always like middle-aged men fighting amongst each other. Like, I don't think it was ever lovely. It was never the Garden of Eden, was it?
It was the Guardian of Eden. That's what it was.
Straight
away?
out the gate.
Too early?
Straight out the gate. We
Sorry,
love to
guys.
see it.
One thing that hasn't happened yet is lots of the politicians haven't moved over to Blue Sky, but what some of them have done is start following our podcast.
Interesting.
So several MPs, several MSs, lots of their staff have said they're listening to the podcast.
Shout out.
They haven't all said they like it.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. I see you're doing a podcast. And you're like, yeah. And then she's like, well, good luck with it. All the best.
Yeah, it's like when you listen to your neighbours having a party. It doesn't mean you like them, but you are just listening.
You can hear them having it.
And getting more and more annoyed as it goes on into the night.
I imagine some people have a party and play this podcast.
Oh, just to the podcast. I hope they do.
Do you reckon people listen to this at like afters? That they come back from like a big old night out, like yeah.
Sat on a kitchen floor with someone you don't know at 4 a.m. like, put it on.
Mel's got a hot take.
Do you know what? Somebody tweeted me about our very brief comment on the Muppets Christmas Carol. So I'm really glad we're really cutting through with the depths of Welsh politics. So thank you so much, though.
It's the big ideas. Do you know who messaged me saying they sent me your latest Guardian article, Will?
Oh, yeah.
And they said, a great read. Do you know who that person was?
I don't.
Was it Will Hayward?
It wasn't Will Hayward. It was my father. You're
Mr. Morgan.
Mr. Morgan. You're making waves in the Morgan household.
Fantastic. Finally. I've made it.
Absolutely.
Tell me it was over the kitchen table.
No, it was via WhatsApp. And then I think he replied to my follow-up message with a thumbs up.
That is a very dad response.
Very dad.
Classic dad.
Very dad. Well, all I get is, what's Will really like? What's Will really like from Girls in the Pub? Which
really?
Yeah. The City Arms, I get mauled what's Will really like? Yeah, I know.
Short.
And I'm like, I mean, this is a bit weird. I'm also on the podcast, but sure, yeah.
What'd you say?
I'm saying he's so lovely, so charming, and then we're like, ah!
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's loads of girls in the City Arms and my dad. Like, what's he like? What's he like?
I've been to the City Arms, and the girls in the City Arms are actually no. I'm thinking of Kiwis. I'm thinking of Kiwis on St Mary.
Yeah, very
on St Mary
different
Street.
vibes.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
that's a predatory vibe.
Yeah,
Kiwis.
yeah, it is.
Do you want to know what happened on Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Eluned Morgan went on the lash.
Oh, I did see.
At the conference.
It was Welsh Labour conference in Llandudno, North
Yeah.
Wales, and some excellent pictures from the always brilliant Matt Horwood, who's essentially the guy who seems to photograph everything in Welsh politics. He's very, very good. But there was some of her. She essentially had her rave on, didn't she?
She was DJing, right?
Yeah. Well, she was up on the decks. Oh my
okay.
god, what am I doing?
Oh no, she was. But the conversation about this online has been mental. I think like the way some people were reacting were as if she was doing a line off a stripper's rack. Honestly, they were really like overreacting. Whereas her girl was just having a good time,
Yeah.
you know, and she's allowed to.
It was like a behind the scenes picture from Skins. Do you remember that show? It was very
Yes.
sort of like basic rave.
Yeah.
I think it was. It reminds me of when like someone does like a student union, like
Yeah.
freshers night, and they're
Yeah,
not a DJ, but Dave Benson Phillips will pretend he's twiddling a knob. I think that
Toadie
was,
from Neighbours.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd love to be on the freshers circuit.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Oh, really?
I reckon you get really good money, and people are like ironically cheering you, and you're really sad inside.
Yeah, and you're just loving it. You're like, some love, finally.
Yeah, exactly. Just Barry from EastEnders. Apparently, like he's properly booked up. Barry,
Yeah, like
until,
he does like Tiger, all those like club
and
appearances.
karaoke. Like apparently that's become a big thing.
Is that what Eluned's going to do? Eluned now? She's going to go around all the freshers fairs now.
Well, she actually came out at the conference to We Are Family for her speech.
Interesting.
So I think a big part of that was trying to tell everyone in Welsh Labour, please stop hating each other. There was never a Vaughan Gething. We were never divided over Vaughan Gething. We are family. I mean, possibly an estranged family who all hate each other and live in different rooms of the house.
That Christmas is going to be lovely with
Yeah,
that family,
I mean,
isn't
that
it?
is classic Christmas, isn't it?
Anxious just thinking about it.
I mean, her speech that she gave was really interesting. So she came out, she made a joke about her sweary text messages during COVID. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw during the COVID inquiry, she said a couple of times, she said, I think it was we are fucked. And she said...
That'll be a better song to walk out to.
yeah, exactly.
In fact, let's play that now.
In relation to the 14th of July of 2021, this is a few months after you became the Minister for Health and Social Services. There was a COVID-O meeting about relaxing inbound border health measures for vaccinated travellers. And that same day we see you texting Ms Jenkins and saying, on COVID-O, we are all fucked. What prompted that text?
Well, can I first apologise for my fruity language? I don't think that's going to go down very well with my husband who's a priest, and being a vicar's daughter, that's probably not what you want to see.
So obviously she says we are fucked. She apologises because her dad's was a vicar and her husband's a priest, or the other way around. I'm not very au fait
Her
with...
dad's her husband. No.
But she does go into like her family life quite a bit. So she talks about... she opened her speech talking about growing up in Ely. So she grew up on the council estate in Ely. She was the vicar's daughter. She talks about how a man once knocked on the door in the middle of the night and was completely naked and clearly had mental health issues, and that showed her the need to support people.
I think that's her trying to get her version of the story across before that's splashed all over the Wales online. There was just a naked man outside her door. She was like, no, he wanted God. He wanted me to help him. That's what it was. Okay, hello, babes.
It was quite funny because she was very much kind of saying, look, I'm a real person, like here I am, please like warm to me. And actually,
Personality overdrive, like that kind of thing.
and it's a weird thing with Eluned because I actually, she is a very personable person. When you see her talk, she is quite endearing. You do tend to like her.
Dare I say they were a little lackluster? Like, I don't think it's a bad thing, because I think this kind of populism, like, trench that we're in now is not a great thing. But I wouldn't say you don't know she's in the room. I don't know if that's an unfair thing to say in your experience.
I think when you actually have a conversation with her, she's a very, very likable person.
Yeah.
I imagine she's not quite as likable if you've waited 6 years for a hernia operation.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't necessarily endear you to someone. Someone can be as good at the sesh as they like.
Exactly.
If you've got something sticking out of your stomach for half a decade, you're not that impressed.
You can't really go to a rave if you've got a hernia sticking out of your stomach, can you? It's like, this is rubbing it in now. You're dropping a sick beat and I can't even get down to it.
But she took a dig at Nigel Farage. She had a little pop at him. And I can't find the thing.
Like a true MC. This is like is it Kendrick and Drake?
Yeah, this is what's going on.
This is the beef, right?
Yes.
This is what she said about reform. She said, "You know who I'm talking about, conference. Reform. They offer simple solutions to complex problems, but Wales knows better. We know that the real change comes through unity, not through division, through hard work, not slogans." She then, I think, actually takes a tone which I think is probably a good way to try and deal with them, other than, fixing public services. She says, Farage has no more interest in our country than he has for the people of Clacton, where he has been studiously avoiding since becoming an MP. Conference, Wales is not a one-night stand. It is a country, and I will fight with every ounce of my being for our people.
Oh, I didn't like that. That took a turn I wasn't
one-night
expecting.
stand.
Yeah. Wales isn't a one-night stand. Then what?
She said, Wales is not a one-night stand, it's a country. I think suggesting that Nigel Farage wants to,
What?
is dine and dash
quit?
the right word? I don't think that is the right word.
Dine and dash.
I mean, that's...
What are they dining on, Will? On a one-night stand, what would one dine on?
What would... Go on.
Poverty
Sure.
in a political context.
This is Will's sexy talk. This
Yeah,
is.
exactly.
Yeah.
I
just
didn't-
lost all the women in the city.
My dad is still involved. Still, my dad's still on side.
I didn't like that. I'm not going to lie. Because she didn't follow through with the analogy. And I respected her so much.
She does go on to say, they offer sound bites. We deliver sound policies.
Oh, do you?
They sow division. We build unity. They promise walls. We build bridges.
Yeah, I mean...
Oh, they campaign. Well,
there's more.
They complain while we campaign. They look backward while we move forwards.
The thing is, though, when she was saying all these quite eloquent lines, there was a sick beat in the background as well, just like
Yeah, Jeremy Miles was going.
yeah. Rave glasses on.
I mean, it's not I Have a Dream, is it? I don't know if this is that great. Do you know, and she's not the best orator. And I do mean that in a good way, because I think there is something about boring politics which is quite appealing right now. But she's not, an orator of our times. So what she does say does have to kind of be quite strongly and robustly written. And I don't know if that is.
They're tricky, aren't they, party conferences? Because in many ways that isn't a speech for the people of Wales. It's a speech to try and firstly bring a party together which has been so bitterly divided, but also set a bit of a fire beneath the activists. So that is definitely what she's trying to do there. She then, having dealt with reform and built bridges and pulled out of a one-night stand with Farage, if you excuse the phrase.
Yeah, got into a relationship with him, tied him down.
Yeah, so
not in that way.
What is the analogy? If Farage is a one-night stand with Wales, Welsh Labour, are they like a kind of 25-year marriage where you just do it on your anniversary?
Yeah, potentially.
At 20 miles an hour.
Yeah,
I hate this. This is horrid.
But she does then turn her eyes on Plaid, where she says, because Plaid actually...
Looking for a third.
Looking for their throuple.
What's it called now? Like a unicorn, isn't it?
Yeah.
Unicorns are I don't know why we're talking about this. Unicorns are people who have sex with couples.
Right, okay.
So is Preen the unicorn?
I think the
unicorn.
The unicorn.
God.
Get me to write your speeches, Reen.
That's what he calls himself in the bedroom. The unicorn's about to come in.
So about Plaid, as I dare bring this back out of the cesspit.
Hell,
she takes a pop at them saying, our party is one that embraces devolution but rejects separation. We do not define ourselves in opposition to others. We are not anti-British nor anti-English. While I love supporting the Welsh women's football team, who, by the way, are killing it at the moment, a week on Friday, make sure you're cheering them on. But I'm also happy to cheer on Team GB in the Olympics because that's what a confident nation does. And in Welsh Labour's Wales, culture and language isn't a luxury, it's a birthright.
Okay, so she spoke to everybody there. To be fair,
Yeah.
she spoke to the reformers who want to be a part of the UK, or anybody who is a unionist. She spoke to them, but also said, "Love the Welsh language, BT Dubs." So she covered everybody in one sentence.
Do you feel seen, Robin?
Do I feel seen? She spoke to me, who's a deep raver at heart. I get down. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like she's trying to be all things to all people, right? But that if you're trying to unite a party and trying to unite a country behind the incumbents, then I suppose that's what you have to do.
Yeah, Welsh Labour have actually been traditionally really, really good at appealing, especially under Drakeford, appealing to Plaid voters. So Eluned Morgan's a Welsh speaker, does massively champion the Welsh language, something she clearly is very passionate about. They are much better at parking their tanks on Plaid lawn than they are on Reform's lawn, mainly because Reform's lawn is covered in just rage.
Yeah, they're not going to get them back at the end of the day. And there's no way they're going to turn those voters back at this point.
Well, that is actually really interesting that you say that, because you're right. Because
thank you
we're gonna, in a minute, we're gonna go
I
on.
love it when Will says I'm right.
We're going to go on to a study by Cardiff University, which looks at how people voted in the last general election and what we can learn about that. So actually, hold that thought, because you're bang on about that. But there's two other speeches I just want to briefly mention. One was Keir Starmer. So Keir Starmer gave a speech.
Sorry.
Allergic to centrism.
the mention of Keir. Oh, sorry. It's a little sick in my mouth.
It's actually really traditionally been quite hard for UK Labour prime ministers or leaders to come to Welsh conferences, because the Welsh conference so much prefer the Welsh leader almost every time. He gave a speech. He didn't mention that there was a farming protest outside. I think we need to do a specific pod on farming. I don't want to kind of do that superficially, and we've actually had some requests for that. So it is something we're going to look at. But there was a farming protest outside. He didn't mention it, didn't go out and speak to them, which maybe I can understand from a security perspective, but also, help yourself. But what he didn't do is say that Wales is going to have any HS2 consequential funding. And I know we've done this quite a lot, but I think there's one thing that we need to say is that we've said about HS2 money not coming to Wales, but essentially what this has meant for Wales is now, when the Treasury looks at their spreadsheet, because HS2 is down as a Welsh project, they look at where money's been allocated around the UK and they go, bloody hell, Wales has had loads.
Yeah.
We don't need to give them any more. And an academic from Cardiff Uni by the name of Dr. Ed Poole, he is a politics lecturer. He's really, really, really nice.
I'm not sure. So I did politics at Cardiff Uni. Did you as well?
Yeah, I did politics.
Did he lecture you?
I never had Ed. Did you?
I don't think I had Ed.
No, he's a bit more of a recent acquisition. He's really, really good. But he was
in the transfer market.
Yeah, they got him on deadline day.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, they got him a deadline day transfer.
I love a sports analogy. I really feel like enjoying it. All of the lies.
We'll go back to Muppets in a second.
Thank you. Thank you. It's not me to speak about Will.
We're back on me. So he pointed out that actually, because Wales has HS2 has been listed as a Welsh project, Wales is actually only getting like a fraction of its population percentage. So it's not even getting a percentage share of funding now. It gets, I think it is down to like a third of its population. So it gets a third of 5%, which is crazy. But anyway, moving on. I want to talk about one more thing about conference, and that was from Jeremy Miles, who is now the Health Secretary, probably the toughest job in Welsh Government, Health Secretary. Would you fancy that gig?
Oh, absolutely not. You're taking like shots from all angles.
Yeah, I think it's pretty unforgiving. And what can you really do? Well, let's see what you can really do.
Yeah.
Well, he's announced that. So they'd previously announced 28 million in extra funding to tackle the waiting list. They've said this is now going to be up to 50 million. So essentially he's announced an extra 22 million. But what was interesting, he said, this will pay for more evening and weekend working. And where necessary, we will use the private sector hospital capacity to reduce the longest waiting lists. Now, that's quite interesting because they have previously been a little bit reticent to use the private sector to try and clear waiting lists. Which is actually what they did in England. So basically, you've got people on waiting lists, you pay the private sector to do the work. The issues are, often the private sector will take the easiest ones. So the really easy jobs the private sector will take, leaving Wales with the NHS with the really complex, hard ones to work with. But ultimately, if you've got to clear this backlog and that's how you've got to do it, that's what you've got to do, isn't it?
Can I ask them, when people are, they express fear about privatisation of the NHS, is this what they're referring to?
Yes, in part. The problem is, when you use the private sector, you drive more resources towards the private sector, which means that it's harder to then potentially retain staff doing NHS work. It's a very, very complicated thing. And it's something they've been really hesitant to do. There is obviously a way that you can use the private sector and also properly fund the NHS.
Yeah.
When I spoke to health bosses in Cardiff and Vale Health Board, and I said, if you were given a massive pile of money, would that clear waiting list? Would that help? They ultimately said, part of the issue is they don't have staff anyway. You can have as much money as you like, but if there's no staff to employ and you've got a shortage, what can you do? But also their buildings and the space and the physical environment of our hospitals is so creaking and so old and so not fit for purpose. But actually, you need like funding over like 10 years to actually create these environments that work. I mean, there was an issue in Cardiff Hospital at the Heath where people couldn't even book meeting rooms because the system that they used had closed, but they didn't have any way of doing it. So no one could book a meeting room for like a month. It's crazy. So, but good news is they are putting more money in. He's also said people will get the treatment they need, but this doesn't always have to be in a hospital. This funding will give health boards space to start making changes to the way that theatres are used to modernise outpatient appointments to ensure that only the people who need to be in hospital are referred to hospital. Because at the moment, we've got a bit of it is not probably the best use of resources for most people that are able to go to hospital. There are some people that have to go to hospital, but if it's very expensive to have someone in a hospital bed. So if you can treat people at home, that is a really, really valuable thing. And that means that there's so many things that tie into this. And I know, Robin, you've said you'd like to get someone in, like an expert on policy, to really dig into this in a future pod, wouldn't you?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, because you've got the whole thing about social care where we can't actually discharge people from hospitals because there's not enough social care beds. So you've got people sitting in hospital that actually just need to be in a care home. So it's really, really complicated. Whether this money will make a difference, I mean, it's not going to hurt having more money going into it. But whether it will make enough of a difference for that to be seen and felt before the next Senate election in 18 months remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a very quick turnaround to be able to make some improvements. But I suppose if in 12 to 14 months you can point at some data and go, well, look, this is what we've done. We've removed this backlog. This is what we're going to do. Give us another 5 years and we can show you what we can do in that bit. It's about hope, like we talked about last week. It's about showing people that you are trying to make their lives better.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think people will feel better for having seen improvement. I don't think anybody expects things to be miraculously transformed overnight, but if they can see improvement, that just gives them a bit of, like you say, hope, just confidence more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, like the idea that you don't need to go to hospital when, what was it, Jeremy said, we can use theatres in different ways. I was like, yeah, get the actors involved.
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Bring the vets in as well, see what we can do.
It would help engagement in the arts if like you had to do like a sonnet before you were treated.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
I know a lot of actors who, having done audition after audition, they would probably go, yeah, I reckon I can be a doctor for the day. Yeah, I reckon. I've watched the YouTube. I think I can do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd do a monologue for a colonoscopy.
Yeah.
Do you know what really scares me? There wasn't there the study that said like half of men feel like they could land a plane if they had to. My fear would be that I'm being treated by a man who's gone, I probably can. You know, I'm like, I want a doctor.
I feel like we should clarify, they are not actually bringing in actors into hospitals.
I think
to be clear.
That was, I think, 60% of men said they were extremely confident they could land a plane.
Oh, if I could bottle that.
The same study said that I think 50% they were extremely confident they could beat an eagle in a fight.
No, I feel like I could beat an eagle in a fight as well. Like, how big's an eagle?
Yeah, it's pretty
Oh,
big.
is it quite big?
But I think 70% said they were extremely confident they could beat a rat in a fight. Which begs the question, who are the other 30% who don't think they could beat a rat in a fight?
They've just
Have some confidence.
Yeah,
Have some
like
confidence in yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't class myself as hard, if you will, but I'm pretty confident I could take a rodent
Yeah.
Oh, this wasn't the fact. This was a cook-off in a Parisian kitchen. That's what they were doing. It was MasterChef.
That was it. That was the bit you forgot to mention. Yeah.
Right, Mel, we're going to go back to your excellent point you made earlier and talk about a election study. Hold on to your hats. We are going to talk about Cardiff University's Wales Governance Centre's election study. So they do this after every election. They talk about, they speak to people before they go in to vote, they talk to people after they've voted, and they can extrapolate loads of really cool stuff from this. Now, I know this doesn't actually sound that exciting, and maybe I'm a bit of a political nerd for liking this, but actually some of the insights in this are fucking brilliant.
Fucking brilliant.
Fucking brilliant.
Not just brilliant.
Fucking brilliant.
Okay, before I tell you and prove to you that I'm right about how brilliant this is, I'm going to give a shout out to Dr. Jack Larner and Professor Richard Wynne-Jones from Cardiff Uni who do this. So we're going to give you a party-by-party breakdown. So we're going to start with the Tories, who are soon to be extinct.
Wow.
You asked this last week. You did say, are we looking at a wipeout?
Yeah. And
You
do you know what
did.
Will said? He said no.
What changed, Will?
A week is a long time before Wales see Wales.
What changed was I spoke to people more informed than me.
But this is it. We're listening. We're learning.
Exactly.
This is good for society.
This is the point.
So I, in the interest of trying to keep these pods under 6 hours, I'm going to go whistle-stop through some of the data. Okay. Fewer than 10% of people aged under 65 in Wales voted Conservative in the last election.
Wow.
Fewer than 10%. Now, assuming this trend continues, 40% of Tory voters will have passed away by the next general election.
There will, however, be people who age into that category, though, won't there?
You say this. Oh, God, you just teed me up. I'm knocking it out of the park.
Loves it.
Did we plan this?
It isn't even scripted. It's just chemistry. So it turns out they are not replacing them. So this is the issue that they've got, is their voters are dying off and they are not replacing them. So one of the very, very juicy nuggets I want to share with you is that as part of also looking at how people vote, they also look at a thing called generational resentment. So this looks at how much people who vote for a certain party of a certain age resent people who are younger or older.
Right.
And the generational resentment among Tory voters for younger people is insanely high.
Yeah.
They essentially hate younger people. If you still vote Tory in Wales in the last general election, fuck you up.
Look, Will, what you do at your own time.
I know, which is ironically why they're so angry, because they can't get votes anymore.
I tell
Well,
you
we
what.
know you fucking love the stats, right?
If you're
Well,
going to be
please.
dead by the next general election and you're still getting an erection, that is quite impressive. Going out with a bang.
God
Love
bless,
that you're-
God bless the NHS.
Will's half-mast reading these stats constantly.
The other interesting nuggets are, so not only are they going to lose 40% of their voters at the next general election, so in 5 years, because essentially they only poll well in people aged over 80.
Wow.
Which is, like, considering that's above average life expectancy, that is not a demographic that is going to work electorally. Interesting as well, anybody who identifies as Welsh but not British, almost guaranteed not to vote Tory.
Right.
Almost nobody who identifies as Welsh is still voting Conservative. What you can see, which is really interesting, is you can see where, and maybe we'll put this on the YouTube for this.
On the World Wide Web.
It turns out I vote Conservative in the last general election. So where did their voters go? So of people who voted for the Tories in 2019, only 39% still voted for them in the last election in Wales.
Bloody hell.
35% of them went to Reform. 9% didn't vote. 9% went to Labour. Smaller amounts went to Plaid. Even smaller amounts to Liberal Democrats, and obviously quite a few died. So that is pretty damning. You can see why Andrew R.T. Davis is targeting Reform voters, because he thinks, well, all of our voters are leaving and going to Reform. But the problem isn't that their voters are leaving for Reform. The problem is that nobody who feels Welsh in Wales wants to vote for you.
Yeah.
There is no Welsh identity, and that is a massive issue for them.
Well, the Welsh Tories, when the Tories were in power in the UK, just became a Boris tribute act, right? It was exactly the same playbook. It was exactly the same sort of populism. R.T. Davis just basically trying to be the Boris over here, and clearly, the UK has moved on from that.
Yeah.
and they haven't changed their tack.
And also, you live in Wales, Andrew R.T. Davis. Boris won lots of votes. He won some votes in Wales, but most of his votes weren't in Wales. You have to run a campaign based on the country in which you live.
Yeah.
But he doesn't.
The one thing I would say on that point, and there was, I want to point out that the landscape was very different. This was just kind of around when Boris was like the rock star. Like this was around that time. Like I remember I was at the Royal Welsh Winter Fair, and honestly, it was like Harry Styles had turned up, right? All of these farmers were like, genuinely, I nearly got trampled, right? They were running through this sheep shed. I was like, what the fuck's going on? And Boris had turned up in his bus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those Welsh hill farmers fucking loved Boris. They loved him. And which is so ironic, but also I think they just saw him as one of them.
Yeah.
And I think Boris was very good at speaking to them on a level where they thought, oh, he's one of us. The fact that he's an Etonian and all of this, that and the other, they completely ignored. Andrew RT has tried to embody that as well. And
because he is a farmer, isn't he?
He is a Welsh farmer, but he's almost like the Monmouth. He's like the English landowner compared to the West Wales hill farmer. They're very different types of farmer. And the Welsh hill farmers in Ceredigion and even in the north and all that, they're much more likely to feel Welsh than identify with what Andrew is saying. But I honestly will always, and I remember being at that winter fair, and it was just before the landslide.
2019.
Yeah. And I remember thinking, oh, Boris is completely want this.
Yeah.
Like it's not even near. If I was thinking, if these Welsh hill farmers are flocking to him, like
pun intended.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Then it's a done deal. And I think, like you say though, we've moved on. We've so moved on, and Andrew hasn't.
I totally agree. Do you want to hear what it says about Labour?
Yeah, go for it.
So that kind of prevailing narrative that Labour voters are going to reform.
Yeah.
But actually, it turns out the data suggests that isn't the case. Obviously, Reform did really well in seats which are traditional Labour heartlands, but that isn't because Labour voters are going to Reform. Basically, any people who were once Labour voters who have now become Reform voters have already left the party. They've gone to the Tories. They've stopped voting. So actually, it was only a very, very small percentage of people in the last general election where Labour's vote in Wales, share in Wales went down. Only a very, very small percentage went to Reform. 7% went to the Tories. 12% went to Plaid Cymru. So Plaid was the biggest gainer of Welsh votes. So I think this narrative that Labour need to appeal to Reform voters, I think actually they need to be worried about Reform in their seats. But I don't think they need to be going, it's not just we have to win our Reform voters back, because they've actually lost them already. I think their biggest threat actually comes from Plaid in terms of where their voters will go. Not in terms of who will be a threat to them in the election in winning seats, but I think in terms of where people who voted Labour might go, it's Plaid. So there's a few interesting bits of data. The first is Labour are paying the price of government. This is how the authors termed it. So normally you don't see decisions in Wales affecting general elections, but the data seems to suggest that actually people in Wales are becoming much more aware of devolved issues.
Yeah.
So normally when you ask people in Wales, who do you blame for the health service? They don't necessarily know that the Welsh government run the health service. But since COVID, that has changed a lot. So all the data suggests that actually people know what Labour are running in Wales and aren't happy about it. The other things I'd say, the Vaughan Geffin stuff absolutely cut through.
Yeah.
So they interview people. This is a really in-depth study. They speak to 2,500 people, which in terms of a poll is actually really good.
Yeah.
And they found that Vaughan Geffin and his donations massively cut through, which is counter to what some people in Labour were saying, that no one gave a shit about that.
Obviously, we've got to be aware that this study was about the UK general election, right?
Yeah.
And obviously there's some people who would vote tactically in this kind of way of, we'll get the Tories out, we'll get the government out. Mm-hmm. So in terms of those people that voted Labour, there'll probably be some people who voted Labour maybe holding their nose doing it, and they might see the Senedd ones in 26 as a way of a protest vote. So I suppose...
I imagine there are not quite a few, but there will be pockets of people who vote differently in UK general elections to the Senedd elections.
Yeah.
And also the ones who do not vote in the Senedd elections as well. And I think if you're somebody who's more of a unionist, you're probably less likely to vote in the Senedd elections, which is going to be, that was always a problem that Welsh Conservatives had. And it was almost like a Pyrrhic victory where they, as a unionist party, were kind of talking down about the Senedd and that kind of thing, but then we're not winning seats because their members don't believe in it, so we're voting in it.
Yeah.
So there will be that kind of repercussion as well.
Well, you're bang on.
But I think it's good that people vote differently and they vote specifically because of the situation that they're in, right? Like, because the people that we're voting for now control different things to the UK government, and we're all in different situations. So I think, but voting differently in Senedd, I think in the UK is absolutely the thing to do.
Well, you're right. So if you go on to Plaid Cymru now, so the data suggests that actually Labour voters really like Plaid.
Yeah,
people have It's not like with some parties, if you vote for one party, you're very unlikely then vote to another in just a different level of election. But Plaid got 14.4% of the turnout in Wales in terms of the vote share. That goes to 20%. Based on this study. So what they do is they ask people who voted Labour, voted for anyone, how will you vote in the next election? And there was a 6 percentage point increase. And most of that was people from Labour voting for Plaid in a Senedd election. So people who voted Labour in a general election now moving over to Plaid. And there's a few reasons for that. First, it could be actually they were already Plaid Cymru supporters who voted tactically in the general election in order to get rid of the Tories. But you could also have people going, well, things aren't getting better. We've got the whole thing of having a Labour government at both ends of the M4, even though the M4 doesn't end in Cardiff, saying...
I always feel like that M4, I heard RT talk about that on Radio Wales last week or the week before. It just feels so reductive to anything north of Caerphilly.
Yeah.
Wild, right?
Yeah, definitely.
That was for you people in Wrexham who complain about the Cardiff bias on this podcast.
We got you. Now let's talk about Kiwis again. The key points for Plaid are very, very, very few people are going from the Tories in the general election to voting Plaid. So Plaid have gone all in on trying to target farmers' votes. Most of them appear to be going towards reform or staying with the Tories. The way that Plaid are going to make hay at the next election is to target Labour. They need to do what the SNP did to Labour in Scotland and go all out after their votes. And so, right, we are going all out to win the valleys. Don't worry about campaigning in Gwynedd and Ceredigion. You've got it.
Yeah.
You're going to win it. You need to go all out on targeting some very specific valley seats because that is where, firstly, the people live. Most of the people live. But also... the other thing that they've got as an advantage is Reen, their leader, polls really well across parties. So people who vote for lots of different parties seem to like him. Some don't know who the fuck he is. Well, that applies to a lot of leaders. But he's got a little bit of that Leanne Wood about him, who, let's not forget, won in the valleys. She's a Plaid leader who won a seat in the valleys. So there's positive signs for Plaid, but I wouldn't say that they need to there's a hell of a lot of work they need to do. But
I would hope for their sake that, how well they did in the general election would kind of boost them going forward. Because if it's like almost the opposite of what we were saying about the Conservatives, and that with Plaid, because, some of their voters will kind of be so for Wales and independence and devolution that they'll be less motivated to vote in the general election because their priority will be the Senedd. So there might be a boost even from that then as well.
No, I agree. I agree. I think what was really interesting about what you said there as well, you started it with how well they did in the general election. And really, they won 4 seats, which you might think in a country of 32 isn't that impressive. But what Reen has managed to do, I think, is reset the expectations of the party and make them far more realist in terms of what they do. Whereas Adam Price was like, I will be the king of Wales. I will lead our nation as the man prophesized. But Reen has essentially come in and said, 4 seats is success, and we will build on that. And you're right, it is. Do you want to hear the findings from Reform?
I thought you'd never ask.
Okay, the key headlines are, their voters are economically really left-wing. So they are not free market neoliberals. They are they're more old school Labour in their look at. They're conservative in terms of socially, but they don't mind the state supporting people. They don't mind the state intervening to make things, hopefully try and make things better. So they're economically left-wing, as we've also seen in America. They are young blokes. Young men poll really well with regard to reform. Well, reform poll really well with young men. Which also makes it quite hilarious that the Tories hate the young people. Yeah, sure. So those people I want to target, they're remaining members fucking despise. The other thing to say is that it's very different to when UKIP did well. UKIP were generally targeting older people who left the Tories, whereas Reform voters are younger and they're blokes. The other thing that they all seem to have in common is that they all think Brexit has gone badly. Now, that doesn't mean they don't support Brexit, but they're not happy with it turned out. So what we have is economically young men who don't think Brexit's worked well and are, as I said, young blokes.
That really surprises me, because in America, I kind of see, not that I love it, but I can understand why the young men were going towards Trump, because there was an element of, you were promised a world where you would be on top, and and women would rely on you, and now you can't see anything anymore, and women kind of don't need you anymore, and economically you're doing worse than women, and you're performing worse in schools, and that is unfair on you, and I'm going to change that. And, going on these bro-y podcasts and all of this,
UFC, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I, not that I love it, but I can see why the young men went to that. I don't feel like Farage is saying that to young men, unless I've completely missed it because he's not on my algorithms. But I don't feel like that's the messaging that Farage is giving young men, unless I could be completely wrong. But that really surprises me.
Yeah, totally. Whereas I remember in 2019, young men kind of being a bit into Boris. Like, oh, he's funny, isn't he?
Yeah, he's one of the lads.
Yeah, totally. Whereas I think that I agree. I don't really see that with Farage. The economically left-wing thing is very interesting to me, because obviously Farage and his background is very economically right-wing in terms of deregulation, and obviously we don't know what Reform's policies or manifestos will be until they get
They're
in.
elected.
Yeah.
I took your gag.
Yeah, no, not at all. What's mine is yours. Which is very much a not Reform policy. But I find that very interesting. Like, from a policy, if that can be communicated to a Reform voter, that what you want, what you're into, like the state, a big state, you're not going to get that with Reform. You're going to get deregulation. You're going to get more libertarian policies.
Most people voting Reform want the NHS to be better. They don't want to move to an insurance-based model, which Farage wants.
Yeah,
like he is the wolf in the sheep's clothing, isn't he?
But then, because Reform have been so loose with any details and vague, they're giving the headlines, which are the NHS needs to do better. Like, no shit, Sherlock, But at the same time, maybe because they're not giving any details, there are people who like what they hear and just fill in the blanks themselves.
Well, Starmer was so lacking on detail UK-wise, right? He just said, change. And
everyone was like, oh yeah, he'll probably do this. So we like that. And I wonder if that's the same with Reform.
I think we're seeing this thing globally, right? Like, incumbents are struggling everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think, this is a post-COVID thing. This is a economical thing in terms of Ukraine and supply chains. Like, people are worse off across the globe, and the governments who were in power when this stuff was happening, they're getting blamed regardless of whether they actually did the things or not.
Yeah.
But it's happening globally, and that's what Welsh Labour needs to be trying to fix. But out of all the incumbents across the globe, are Welsh Labour going to be the outlier? They have been for all of history. They're the most successful party in global history, right?
Yeah, they are. It's the most successful Democratic Party, absolutely, yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
I mean, if you've got guns, it makes it easier.
Yeah, maybe that's an idea.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think McGarvey might have something to say about that.
They'd pay over the odds and the guns wouldn't work. Amazing. So, I think we've sorted out all Welsh politics, haven't we?
We've sorted it. Every week we just come and resolve it.
We're very good, aren't we?
We are so good.
Very good.
Yeah.
What's on the agenda this week for you guys?
What's on the agenda for me? I'm going to get some interesting seat analysis for the next Senate election. So we'll be able to look at where particular parties will be winning, where they might not be. Obviously, it's quite hard to predict, but I think that'd be quite interesting. It'd be interesting to me.
Yeah.
Can't be great. I've got a lot of shows on this week, actually, which I'm really looking forward to. And then I'm treating myself to some tickets to the rugby on Saturday.
Is that a treat? Is that a treat?
And I'm going to go and watch my nation get absolutely whooped.
It's like self-flagellation,
It
isn't
is
it?
a little bit, yeah. How about you?
Tomorrow, well, we record this on the Monday. On Tuesday, how shall I phrase this?
I will have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, I will have gone to the GQ Man of the Year Awards.
Are you up?
Stop
Are you up for
it.
it?
Can you imagine it? Am I up for it? No.
Stop it. That is so cool, though. Can you send us loads of photos?
I'm going to be spamming our group constantly.
Nice. I mean, I actually read GQ in a this isn't that cute. Cool. In the vets while I waited for my tortoise to be treated for something.
I thought you were waiting for an operation because that's the way the NHS is now.
I could read War and Peace while I was waiting for that operation. But no, I was reading GQ and the adverts are so not aimed at me.
Sure.
It's
What are they? Because they're not aimed at me either.
Isn't it quite sort of luxurious?
Oh, it's so luxurious. It's like there's men who hold their cuffs. You always hold your cuff, don't you? You don't. And somehow, I don't know how everyone's just so handsome.
Yeah.
Like it is very.
You're handsome.
Not in a GQ way.
No.
Actually, not at all. No, I can't even say that on a.
You're like in a Nuts magazine way, aren't you? Sort of Nuts and Zoo.
No, I'm more in a kind of BBC history magazine kind of way.
I was going to say Auto Trader.
I'm definitely not an auto trader.
No, I don't think so. What magazine are you?
I'm glad you didn't say Nestle Zoo for me. Imagine. Oh God, I don't know what I'd be actually. One of the Welsh hill farming ones.
Sure.
Yeah, something like that.
Home and country.
Home and country,
on your
that would be
horse.
me.
Nice.
Yeah, very trad wife, kind of making a little pie on a Sunday.
Nice.
Cool. I think that's it for this week. Producer Darryl, we under an hour. We're under an hour.
Oh, look at us
welcome.
being efficient.
Welcome. You're very, very welcome. Thank you to our sponsors.
Thank you so much to our sponsors.
Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, 5-star reviewing.
And to HayMan Media.
Oh, absolutely. HayMan Media.
So I just love them. I love that we get to come to a studio with people who are actually know what they're doing. It's very, very comforting.
It's very refreshing.
It's very, very nice. And share it with your friends. And we're still having live pod conversations. So if that's something of interest to you, let us know. And then we can try and get
Also,
something
we want to do
sorted.
For Wales, See Wales merch. If you've got
Yeah.
ideas for what sort of merch you'd like, for my dad listening, that's merchandise.
Sure.
Yeah.
I feel like Donald Trump has ruined the baseball cap.
Yeah, I don't think we can do caps. Can we?
yeah.
Beanies? I feel like we could do
Little
a beanie.
beanies. Oh, little hipster beanies.
Yeah, that'd be
nice. Maybe little sweatshirts.
Cute.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you want it, let us know.
Yeah. And they'll be very
I'd
reasonable.
like a spinning necklace.
A spinning necklace? What's that?
Like I'm in a rap video.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
strong.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
This is why I'm not GQ.
I think I'd like some stationery.
Oh, would you?
I'm quite a stationary boy. You know, one of those, those rulers from school that you slap on your wrist?
Did you? Yes, and it would fold around.
Yeah.
Did you ever have one with all the kings and queens on?
No, I
wooden
don't
one.
think so. Oh, maybe from St. Fagans or something.
Obviously, in Wales, it's a list of all the repressors.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You can get that with just Michael Sheen, Michael Sheen, Michael Sheen, Michael Sheen.
He is the King of Wales.
Yeah.
Right. Who are you?
I'm Robin Morgan. I'm a stand-up comedian. I'm on tour at the moment. I've got a Cardiff date in February. I've got a Bristol date this Friday if you fancy invading England.
Where in Bristol?
The Comedy Box, which is at the Hen and Chickens pub.
People in South Wales will have to cross bridges. Labour build bridges.
Oh, very good link. Well done, Will Hayward. Who are you?
Lovely.
Well, you've said it.
Yeah.
I run a newsletter. It's got my name. That helps pay for my journalism. If you like it, support it by paying for it. Thank you.
I am Mel Owen. I am a comedian and an author. And if you speak Welsh, please do buy my book. It's called Oedolyn-ish. And it was in the top 10 of most sold Welsh books so far
Dude,
this
that's amazing.
year. So if we could get it up in the top 10, a bit further up.
I've seen people reviewing it. Obviously, I've had to
Yes.
Google Translate what they're saying. But people have said really nice things, haven't they?
Yeah. Do you know what? I don't want to drop this in, but you guys would have seen it. The word national treasure has been banded about. So if anybody does want to buy it. I can get a plaque of that. I can put it up in this studio. That would be
You were
great.
called a national treasure.
I was called a national treasure.
Oh, fuck off.
Love that. Love that. We should change with National Treasure mellow in for Walesy Wales.
Exactly. But yeah, thank you so much to everyone else who's bought it so far. But yeah, please keep doing if you speak Welsh.
Amazing. Cool. Try, guys.
See you later.
What I was saying with people who are